He's one of the most notorious entities on the planet, a creature that has somehow managed to be known and strongly believed in by millions of people, but is rarely discussed or heard about in the English-speaking world. This week, we're digging into El Pombero. I didn't see you there.
It all started early this morning.
From hunting ghosts to Bigfoot, UFOs, cryptids, true crime, paranormal, and more.
I've always wanted to see a UFO.
Oh, I was researching for your entertainment. That's Bigfoot's scat.
He basically wrote the book on modern culture.
We aren't really comedians.
What if Buddha did cocaine?
The Addams Family on meth. This is the Black Cat Report.
See you on the other side. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 127 of the Black Cat Report. My name is Gil, and joining me here today, fresh from his graduation ceremony from the Dr. John Brinkley Academy of Agricultural Science and Alternative Fertility, is Dr. Joey Lee. Congratulations, sir. Doctor, sir. Congratulations.
Yeah. I actually had to go to Pavia, Italy to get my degree. Luckily, Benito Mussolini is not alive, so he cannot revoke my degree. And I appreciate it. Thank you so much. It's been a hard couple months. I do feel
hard.
Yeah. I do feel like I should be able to tell you that to find anything, just go to WebMD. That's the end all be all of Dr.
It's true. Mm-hmm. Well, we're all really excited for your career, buddy, and I just wanted to let you know that we're all pulling out for you. Now, before we attempt to bring El Pombero to light, we have a little bit of housekeeping. First, thank you to everyone who tuned into Beer, Booze, and Boogeymen, the live paranormal call-in show that Joey and I do with our friends on the first Saturday of every month. Specifically, we want to give special thanks to the anonymous individual who shared their horror story about a Ouija board. We sincerely hope that the advice we gave helps. Also, a big thanks to the Black Cat Report patrons who called in live during the middle of their trip to Canada. Jaden, Ian, Ave, y'all are the freaking best. As for the next Beer, Booze, and Boogeyman, the topic will be deathbed confessions, those deep, dark truths someone shares just moments before they pass on. Have you heard any? If so, give us a call. Share them. Fuck, they're dead. Doesn't even matter. And you can submit all this anonymously, so you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you can do it. It's gonna be it's
not a big
easy,
deal.
Literally.
It's so easy. All you got to do is go to ghost.beer. That's ghost.beer. Or just click the link in the Beer Booze Boogeyman section of the show's description. Super easy. Go in there.
Very easy.
Share it all. Tell us everything. It can all be anonymous. Lie to us. We love lies. Now,
we actually do.
Low-key. Now, as for this episode's sources, it's complicated. Looking up information about El Pombero is easy, but finding sources that agree with each other, or better yet, fit with the descriptions given by direct witnesses, well, as it turns out, is damn near impossible. Even among the main sources everyone seems to reference, most boil down to just a few accurate sentences at best when they are held up and compared to witness statements. As a result, in order to deliver the most accurate information as possible, I ended up printing 68 pages of articles, so I'm not going to read them off, but you can find the links to everything referenced in this episode / everything I found and more in a Google spreadsheet I'll share publicly for anyone else going down this rabbit hole. The link will be found in this episode's show notes. Probably labeled Google spreadsheet.
Yeah. Gil killed a whole tree to do this.
So,
yeah.
You know it's bad when Trump says he's cutting down too many. Like, that's what happened. It got pretty insane. It was one of the lesser covered executive orders that he did.
Yeah. If you go on Facebook and you check La Pombero's Facebook relationship status, it will say it's complicated. El Pombero. Thank you.
Is it showing on
It's
your
showing.
screen?
It's showing. Yep, El Pombero.
Yeah, this is a fascinating entity. I went way too far down a philosophical rabbit hole with this topic, Well, now with housekeeping out of the way, let's dive in. Living deep in the heart of Central South America, El Pombero is an ever-present danger who's been feared, honored, and even cherished by the region's original inhabitants, the Guarani, for hundreds, if not thousands of years. Its territory spans out from Paraguay and weaves through the dense jungles and mountains into the neighboring lands of Brazil, Argentina, and Bolivia. He's known for kidnapping people of all ages, often killing them, though of the few who've been taken and survived, most report they experience similar, horrifying effects to their connections to reality during the entire ordeal, while the rest are left with their memories wiped, completely blank when they've been found. For those who do retain their memory, it's not uncommon for them to say that they were able to see people searching for them, but were invisible and unable to speak. He's also loyal to families, a rapist, and protector of small children, and has the ability to paralyze or impregnate people with a single touch. He loves liquor and tobacco, which are the vices some people use as a way for gaining his favor or loyalty, while others, who make the mistake of encountering El Pombero and not sharing one of these with him, quickly face his wrath. His AKAs go on forever, partially because of how ingrained he is in the Guarani culture, but also because saying his name at night is known to summon him, and as a result, he gets a lot of nicknames, most common of which are Kari Pari, which means Lord of the Night in Guarani, or Señor de la Noche, which means the Man of the Night in Spanish. He's also called Huarhe Hare, Master of the Sun, Pomberito, Little Pombero, Parage, which means hairy feet, Cho Pombe, which means Don Pombero. And basically, the list just keeps going on and on and on. Partially because every single small community in this area has given him kind of their own nickname. They're all afraid to speak of him for, 12 hours of a 24-hour cycle. They're all afraid to say it. So every small village and region and area has kind of started to refer to him in one way or another, which makes it very hard to research him. Now, I'm not going to attempt to go through all these fucking nicknames, and nobody wants to hear that list. I didn't even want to find out that there was a list, and actually there isn't a list. I should probably make one. Point is, I'm just going to stick with the Guarani people most often call him El Pombero, which it's technically nighttime right now, so I shouldn't be saying
It
that.
is?
But
yeah, you're gonna say it many
we've
times.
done much worse on this show.
Yes.
Well, real quick though, at the pains of researching this, I have to share this if somebody else is researching El Pombero. You need to know now that if you're looking him up, without fail, you will see his name translated to the fireman and the firefighter, which in Spanish is El Bombero with a B at the beginning.
That makes sense.
This is entirely a mistranslation and sent me down a wild goose chase, but I did get a very nice calendar ordered thanks to Google image searches, but that's totally a different story.
South American firefighters. I do believe that I was Googling
Who
him
knew
just a
that was
moment ago.
a genre? Yeah.
It's a genre, yeah. I was googling him, and one of the nicknames that came up actually was a U.S. nickname. It's from Florida. It was a Southern deadbeat dad, Bombero. So it was just meth head.
You're
Basically, just showed a meth
specifically
head.
not you're specifically not supposed to make fun of him at night, Joey. And good luck.
I
Well,
am, but I will not say that anymore. So as to not confuse people when they Google.
there's a couple of no-nos, buddy. You crossed one. You
Well,
crossed one.
well, I shouldn't. No more. No more.
Careful, careful.
Mm-hmm.
Well, with that all said, El Pombero falls in the category of being a duende, which translated is a ghost. All of the Spanish-speaking world knows this, right? So duendes they're ghosts, or more specifically, goblins. This category, duende, is used as basically as a catch-all term, right, for a wide range of different types of small goblin-like beings. But with that said, after all of my digging, and dear Lord, my hands are tired, when it comes to El Pombero, it's honestly unclear if El Pombero is just a single entity, like, say, the Loch Ness Monster,
Mm-hmm.
a specific type of entity, like the squonk, or his own special subclass of entities, like demons.
Mm-hmm.
No
So
fucking clue.
no,
I
no
read
concrete.
everything,
Yeah.
every goddamn thing available. None, not
Huh.
a goddamn thing.
Oh.
Even the sources that refer to him as like him as a specific, like it is just that one
Mm-hmm.
entity, they then go on to talk about creating more of them, which makes no fucking sense.
Yeah. Like cloning himself, cloning themselves, cloning, or just like that they.
Keep in
Well, I
mind
mean,
he's a rapist.
and impregnating people
Mm-hmm.
with the touch. Boop.
Yeah, specifically, and I didn't include this.
Mm-hmm.
If he impregnates a woman, they come out looking like they're half El Pombero,
Demony,
which will
demonish,
which we'll
goblinish.
kind of get to. Yeah, we'll kind of get to here in a moment.
Mm.
But they come out, half El Pombero. Um, and if the child gets introduced to the woman's partner, the actual, like, say, her
Yeah.
husband or something, he becomes a Pombero. The baby is technically a Pomberito, a little Pombero.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that whole mythology. That's a whole rabbit hole. And this is all from the same sources, and I'm not shitting you, from 1956 and 1976, some of the earliest anthropological writings around
Yeah.
beliefs. It just goes out there. But
Wild.
regardless of how many there are, to the Guarani, El Pombero is a daily reality, not a superstition or a boogeyman, but as real as God is to Christians, and frankly, seen more often. And in much the same way as God and His Word is debated, so too are the motives, meaning, and even the physical appearance of El Pombero.
Mm-hmm.
He's depicted as a tiny little wild-looking humanoid, about 2 feet tall, who is completely nude with jet black skin that's covered in notoriously thick hair. He has a large head and a torso kind of shaped like two half-inflated basketballs shoved into a small pillowcase. I think that's the best way I could describe it.
That's a good
He's
description.
always shown hunched forward with a crouched back, which, by the way, is what Pombero means, is crouched.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
And I believe, after thinking about this too much, that this posture is most likely due to his notoriously huge, constantly getting used cock. Well,
Hmm.
below all
Chicken.
that,
Yeah,
and
chicken. Mm-hmm.
left, no, his penis,
Oh, okay.
Um,
Oh, yeah. I was
but
confused there for a second.
uh, Joey, I'm screen sharing. I need to get your reaction. Hold on.
I don't want to
Hold
see
on.
this, but okay. I guess I
Oh
have
no,
to.
you're gonna see a Pombero cock. I've got one here for
I
you. Hold on.
guess I did so much work on goat balls and balls in general that now I have to see a Pombero
Oh,
cock. Yes, I guess
Joey, you and
it's
anybody
necessary.
tuning in live that doesn't have the fancy overlays, y'all are in for a treat. Yeah. So this is one of the
Okay.
depictions.
Mm-hmm.
I would like you to notice his third leg right there.
No wonder they're instantly impregnated.
I mean, like
What's
Ron
coming at, is he
Jeremy's
got a
sitting over
cigar
here.
too? Yeah, I know. He's got a cigar too.
Oh yeah,
Or
no,
is
he's
that
got a
another
cigar.
penis coming out of his mouth? Yeah, yeah. There's another penis coming out of his mouth.
He's got a cigar, buddy.
Yeah.
Um,
That's a tree trunk back. That's
Jesus,
a tree trunk down there.
literally, because the photo we just showed was made of wood.
Ha.
But below all of that, and there's a lot.
Barely touching the ground.
Honestly, if he fell forward, would he notice?
Mhm.
Um, below all that, and left to fend for itself, to hold up that very demanding frame, are two skinny legs which lead down to his backwards facing feet, a feature that, for anyone familiar with the Jinn of Islam, just caused bells to go off.
Mm-hmm. That's weird.
Well, he's also reported as tall, with pale skin and long blonde hair hanging down from a large sombrero he usually sports. He's slim, fit, and wears pants.
Mm.
So what the hell is he? That's been a quest I've been on for 2 weeks. And I'm going to tell you, in order to answer that, I dug up anything I could find that quoted the individuals and communities describing their firsthand encounters or the cultural memory.
Mm-hmm.
And that led to the most ridiculous sources becoming the most credible. Tabloids, more popularly referred to today as clickbait articles, known for their insane headlines and wild stories with big assumptions. The one thing they do very well is directly quote the witnesses, neighbors that are involved in whatever the case happens to be. And if you keep scrolling down, you'll usually find they are filled with comments by nosy community members.
Hmm. The best kind. That's how we get the information we get. You know.
It took a while. I mean, to be very, very honest about this, the official sources around the, or what is supposed to be the official sources around this stuff disagreed so much. And I got so annoyed trying to find a well-formed summary around
Mm-hmm.
El Pombero that I was like, fuck it. I'm just gonna look for
Yeah.
witnesses. I'm gonna look for people that are close to the Guarani, like the culture. I'm gonna see
Mm-hmm.
what the fuck they have to say. And that's when I realized almost none of these sources were written by Guarani people. It was
That makes sense.
mostly Jesuits that came in and violently tried to, colonize the region. And I'm like, I can't trust them for shit. And around the time that there was kind of some transitions and stuff that were happening in the area, um, it there's like 5 pages of the script I threw out because I realized I'm like, this has nothing to directly do with El Pombero. But I would like to point one thing out before we get into the main body of the story. When I speak of the Guarani people, they are not some tribe living deep within the rainforest. There's not just 20 of them. Let me break it down for you here. In Paraguay, 89% of the population speak Spanish. 90% speak Guarani.
Mm-hmm.
There are more Guarani speakers in that entire country than there are Spanish speakers.
So 8 to 9% of the speak Spanish.
Yeah.
90% speak Guarani, right? Because you said
No, no,
eight
no, no,
to
no.
80 to 90.
89% speak
Okay.
Spanish.
Okay.
90%.
Also
So
speak Guarani too.
there's No, well, that means 1% more speak just Guarani.
Oh, okay. So they also, that's what I was trying to get at. They also speak
Yeah.
Spanish.
However the numbers work out. Yeah, but the
Yeah, yeah.
point is that there's 1% more in total.
Yeah.
Guarani is the second official, or you can't even say it's the second official. It would be the first official language of Paraguay. Spanish
Yeah.
is the second. And
Mhm.
there have been so many folks that have been, leaving Paraguay and like moving to Spain for, a better life, dreams, opportunities, all that jazz,
Mhm.
that Spanish universities and public schools in all throughout Spain are now teaching Guarani officially as classes to people.
That's
Like,
really cool.
so, yeah, it's like I learned a lot. They're fucking fascinating, but
Mhm.
just culturally really fucking cool. But all that said, so when we're speaking about El Pombero and coming from the Guarani people, this isn't a tribe of 10 folks.
Mhm.
Please understand, this isn't a tribe of 10 folks. This is a sizable portion of the population,
Mhm.
maybe not always direct heritage wise, but in terms of cultural influence, major.
Mhm.
that is fucking huge, right?
Yeah. It's not like a lost, and to like add to it, it's like not like a lost Amazon tribe where they haven't talked to humans or anything like that. They're just the same, as same as everybody in Paraguay. So
Yeah, and well, they're the majority. But one of the most fascinating things I think that I learned during all this, their written language wasn't standardized until 1950. So think about a
interesting.
population so massive and like with such a huge influence culturally. And less than 100 years ago, they finally were like, okay, commas go there. Like, even the super racist Jesuit missionaries reading through kind of some of their accounts were utterly fascinated the Guarani language.
Mhm.
They even at the time while they were going in and beheading people and slavery and all sorts of horrible shit, they were writing in their own personal journals, this is a more advanced language than Spanish.
Yeah.
And they were like, this is incredible.
As
Like,
they were like lining
we're-
them up to hang them, they're just like, man, you know what? Tell them what you say about this, about them, but I love their language,
Every time I see your head up
Click.
there on that pike, I'm gonna remember
Okay.
how you taught me to use vowels.
Hmm.
It's really fucked up, but it is
Yeah, very bad.
very intense, very fucked up history of colonization. But their language is fucking cool. Well, in the end, of all of the articles I read through, one case which was widely covered across multiple sources, and I was able to verify with the institutions that they cited, right? Because we're trying to get to the truth here.
Hmm.
One of them honestly summed up El Pombero the best, both culturally in terms of how people relate to him, but also paranormally,
Hmm.
if we want to give it that. And I want to emphasize here, nobody in the Guarani referred to El Pombero as a cryptid. That is my own theory I'm pushing as a
Yeah.
generalization because who the fuck in the English speaking world looks up goblins? Culturally, it's not a thing for us, right? At least
Yeah.
I don't know anybody, and I know quite a few folks that would be into them. One case, which was widely covered and easy to back up and reference and validate, sums up El Pombero the best. And that is going to be the body of today's episode.
Hmm. The real short and fat body of the episode.
Like two partially inflated basketballs
Yeah,
shoved
yeah,
into a black
shoved together.
pillowcase.
Yeah, that's a very good description. I can see that in my
Thank
in
you. It
my
took me
brain.
days to figure out how to explain that.
Hmm.
Well, shortly after eating lunch, on June 30th, 2016, Gilberto de Silva settled his 2-year-old son, Octavio, into a tent for a midday nap before leaving him in the care of his brother-in-law and making his way back to work. His wife, Octavio's mother, Viviana, had already left the makeshift laborers' camp a little while earlier. It was harvest season in Colonial Milagros, Paraguay, and the young family had traveled with around 30 of their close friends and relatives to the area to work as harvesters on a yerba mate plantation. Soon after beginning work, De Silva's brother-in-law came to tell him that Octavio had woken up and wouldn't stop crying, but as he was unable to stop in the middle of what he was doing, De Silva instead sent his 12-year-old nephew to go check up on little Octavio. A few minutes later, his nephew returned with bad news. Octavio was missing.
Of course.
De Silva did what a lot of dads would do. He panicked with a stern expression, and with a mix of being slightly annoyed but motivated by concern, he grabbed Viviana and ran back to the camp where they started what became a multi-day search for Octavio. Once they got back to the camp, their fears accelerated as they moved from quiet searching to yelling to frantically opening each tent and asking everyone nearby if they had seen their little Octavio. And while no one had, one by one, each person they asked dropped everything, and within an hour there was a full-fledged search party spreading out from the camp and combing through the yerba mate plantation and rough terrain of the bordering forest. By nightfall, nearby neighbors of the plantation and the regional police had also joined in, and within 24 hours their numbers swelled to include over 100 officers on the ground with
Dang.
helicopter support, horses, and drones.
Dang.
And there was no paperwork or bureaucracy. No one at all was wasting any time throwing themselves and any resources they had into looking for Octavio. News had spread so fast that even the Minister of Government was in a helicopter flying above the area trying to look for him.
That's a lot.
We're talking about mythological or hypothetical or, whatever type of being, depending on where you're at in the world. Obviously, this is building up to a mystery or some kind of intense question.
Yeah.
I can't stress enough here how quick the entire region reacted and how thoroughly, like, just how thorough they responded.
Yeah.
Everybody. There's Twitter posts of the fucking minister of government being like,
Mm-hmm.
just got out of the helicopter. Like everybody was.
Yeah.
This wasn't kind of like he was missing for 4 days. How did he get over here? And it's like, well, he was
Yeah.
missing for 4 days. What the fuck, dude?
Yeah.
Like,
It's like we talked about in that the National Forest episode, one of the National Parks episode with I think it was the Martin case. His last name was Martin, where they found like a shoe, but it was like maybe a day later or something like that, and it took them so long to get. Besides, like the main host of the parents and kids, they like took them the forest rangers so long to get there, like a day or two to get there and start looking. And so, like, yeah, this is like immediately gone, you know, just crazy.
Yeah. Well, within the same span of time, the police had also arrested 2 men from the harvesters' camp, but De Silva was more annoyed by this news than reassured, stating to local reporters at the time, quote, "They have nothing to do with it. One is my brother-in-law and the other a friend. And they are not about to do anything to my kid.
Mm-hmm.
I suspect El Pombero because he left no trace." He then went on to say that by nightfall, on the day Octavio disappeared, quote, "I bought liquor and tobacco and left it in the woods for him. Now I hope that he releases my kid."
Like a freaking uh what, like he's giving him something, what is it called, like a ransom, like he's giving him a ransom to give back to get back his kid to like tobacco and liquor. Oh,
It's more
okay.
like an apology. Well,
I'm sorry that
the
you stole my kid.
low
Okay.
key, yeah. So
Yeah. Okay.
he said this within the 24 hours span of this much attention. Again, like everybody is there. This is blowing up in the news,
Mm-hmm.
right? And like some of these news articles and like sources were from countries that border
Yeah.
Paraguay.
Yeah.
Like this was spreading out across South America in terms of like how
Mm-hmm.
significant this is. Like everybody was boom, like on this shit.
Yeah.
Naturally, the reactions by reporters and police when De Silva made that statement that his son was taken by El Pombero, they were mixed. That all said, many understood this as a very valid theory, while the others scoffed and dismissed it as backward superstition. But no
Mm-hmm.
matter what criticism people gave him, De Silva and Viviana insisted El Pombero was behind this, and they knew why. For decades, De Silva's father had made nightly offerings to El Pombero in exchange for the being's friendship and protection of his family. But
Hmm.
De Silva strayed from this tradition, breaking the cycle of gifts, loyalty, and favors that they had cultivated with El Pombero. It was after seeing the signs of the trickster's handiwork, and by that I mean the complete lack of signs. And by that I mean a child disappearing into thin air, and then further learning about the family agreement that De Silva had abandoned, that local healers had advised him to stop ignoring El Pombero if he ever wanted to see his son again.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty strong statement to make it make to
As
somebody
yeah,
at that time.
especially like yeah, your
But
kid just disappeared, but you know he left that out there, and then like he walked out there just to see if it was gone, and he saw all the like the police officers and cops just being like, "What? Drinking the liquor, smoking the cigarettes," and he's like, "What? Oh no! Did you see him? Did you see El Pombero? He ran away." And he's like, "Dude, this is an offer to him, not you." You know?
I want to point out here, it's not without precedent. This specific area has long been notorious for children disappearing without a trace. July of 2000, a 2-year-old mysteriously went missing from inside the house while his mother was home.
That's crazy.
When this was realized by the father, when he came home from work that evening, a massive search soon began. And just like with Octavio, and within 27 hours of the child's disappearance, he was discovered sitting alone in a forest clearing, cold and frightened, but physically unharmed.
Weird. Did it say if that person dropped something for them? Like gave them a
No, it didn't.
ransom? Okay.
No, it didn't. It wouldn't be from everything I read from again like tabloids and through comments and through trying to dig through stuff. Um, it wouldn't be surprising if they did, and it wouldn't be
Mm-hmm.
surprising if they didn't. Like
Yeah, yeah.
it just
Either way, you know.
it's kind of like going up to a random neighbor and being like, "Do you believe in Christ?" Some folks are going to be fervently like, "Yes, 100%. This is a Christian household," and da da da, and we
Mm-hmm.
go to church. And other folks are gonna be like, "Yeah, kind of a little bit," and if I get desperate enough, I do. And other folks are gonna be like, "Get the fuck out of my face," and like,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
they're gonna be like, "No, we don't believe that." But the point is like, it wouldn't be shocking in this day and age if somebody was just like yes or no. So it's kind
Mm-hmm.
of hard to tell. But if it's a yes, it's a real belief.
Yeah.
If it's a no, it's probably a pretty strict no. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah. Yeah, is
it's kind of
that makes sense.
what's going on here. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a lot. And first off, when you said when the dad was going to that he was just like he did what any parent would do. I thought he just was gonna like shrug and be like, let's go make another one. Um
Well, You know that look that like dads get when they're slightly concerned, but they have to maintain this expression of, I'm going to act like I'm just annoyed because I don't actually want to think about if this is really happening. And when it's proof
Yeah,
that I'm actually just annoyed, I'm going to be like, how dare you? You know, like
yeah.
that kind of like that's the best way I could explain it. And I literally did read articles about where people were accusing him during the time span of his son missing of him being involved in his son's disappearance
Mm,
specifically because of his facial expression. So like
yeah.
I'm not exaggerating this at all. That was a whole thing over the time span of his son's disappearance because there was just articles coming out everywhere at the time,
Hmm.
and people commented a lot about it, and he had to respond to those comments, and it got pretty fucking ridiculous. He's like, I always had faith, and it was just
I love.
this
I
whole
just
thing.
imagine him sitting there, like on the articles that are out, just actually typing and responding person by person to, just like it's like, shouldn't
I
you
would
be
be
out
looking
looking?
for my son right now if you
Yeah,
didn't
if
make me
if you
respond.
stopped commenting on this, I would literally have found my son, little Octavia. Would have found him. You know.
Yeah, it got out of hand. And in December of 1996, Romina Viarte, who was only 3 years old, vanished from her family's rural home and was missing for 6 days before being discovered 2 miles away, only slightly dehydrated and bruised.
Hmm.
As for Octavio's story, by the second day, were more than 200 police and regional law enforcement officers there on the ground, completely covering the area.
Hmm.
And this case had now reached a point where, after covering every accessible piece of land multiple times, they were now forced to split up into small teams and start cutting through the thick jungle with machetes.
It's awful.
This is a almost 3-year-old boy who like literally can barely walk.
Yeah, you wouldn't see. You'd have to cut
This
down
is
most of the
absurd.
jungle. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. You'd have to cut down
Well,
most of the jungle to see.
but also like, well, how the fuck is he getting in there? You know,
Yeah,
like,
true. Yeah.
you need teams of people just to go like a yard into this. Sorry, uh, 15 cheeseburgers into this.
Correct.
Um,
Yes.
like this little fucking kid. How
Yeah.
this is getting ridiculous, right?
Yeah, yeah. That's honestly, it's like, what can you do? Like, it's either there was somebody who stole the baby. You know, there was somebody that just came in there, stole the kid, or saw him out there playing. We're like, cool, I'm taking this kid. Or Pombero just took him, and it's like there's kind of two options. I mean, could have eaten getting eaten by an animal, truthfully,
They
because 2 years old.
still tender.
Mm-hmm.
But like there was a whole section I didn't even include. They brought in fucking forensic teams on the first night.
Damn, that's quick. Perfect though.
Like, dude, they're like, I can't express like they took this so goddamn seriously. This is
Mm-hmm.
2016. Drones were not readily available in 2016. This is like these are major resources they're throwing. They
Yeah,
had infrared up on the first fucking night looking for this kid.
that's huge. Yeah, that's huge.
While forensic teams are on the scene, like
Yeah,
everything was into this. Um,
it's a lot
anywho,
of money.
there was no fucking around. They were like, "Fuck paper!" Like, we need to find this little kid now.
Mm-hmm.
I really admire how well this like community came together. You know, because
Yeah,
it, these are these folks are the equivalent regionally at the time of seasonal migrant workers, and
yeah,
this is how the community is responding.
yeah.
I have so much respect for that. Like, I have
It's
so much respect for that.
It's interesting to see too because this is a yerba mate plantation. So yerba mate, the company, correct? Or is yerba mate the the drink.
Yerba mate is a specific leaf from a tree.
I don't know. I've never drank it, so I don't understand. But I imagine that the company that owned it might.
Mhm.
I kind of see it both ways. I can see that the company's like, shit,
It
we
was a
don't want.
private plantation owner.
Okay. Well, the person who owned it probably like, shit, we don't want somebody to think that, we're stealing kids or something like that. But I can see it the other way where they're just like, they're just hired help, whatever. But I imagine because it was the kid, they were just like, we need to find this person. So
I think it
from
was genuinely because they cared.
from top
I'm going to be
down was
honest.
Karen. Top down was
Yeah.
Karen.
uh,
You know,
I,
bottom
I
up too.
read through a lot of articles of yeah, I read through a lot of articles from like months later or years later with follow-ups and stuff like that. Like people they legitimately cared.
Yeah.
Like 100%. And I also think, and this is fucked up, they've gotten good at this because of how many kids go missing in this area.
Oh, see, that's a whole nother detail too. That's like, okay, because if there's a lot of
Yeah.
kids that go missing, you're just like, maybe a more serious problem. But it
Mm.
is what it is.
Well, among those teams was a member of the region's Special Operations Group, Jorge Marcelo Vieira, a local who was raised with the same beliefs as De Silva. After hearing El Pombero might be responsible for taking Octavio, Jorge decided he was going to follow local beliefs about what El Pombero does after stealing someone. But this wasn't just blind superstition, it was personal. For decades now, ever since he was a small child and had multiple uncles mysteriously disappear in this area, he had wished that the people looking for them would have seen the signs and followed their beliefs. This is so
It's getting
perfectly
deeper.
just
Yeah, it's getting deeper.
yeah. When the day started, Jorge spoke to his team, quote, "If De Silva said it was El Pombero, then according to beliefs, he'll take the boy towards the east." Adding later, "Thanks to our ancestors, we hold the belief that this creature leads people to where the sun is. We
Hmm.
followed that route, and the coordinates they gave us showed the correct direction to that place." Quoting again, "It was very dense forest, up to our waists. When we saw Octavio, we were overjoyed. The boy was
God,
sleeping in
of
perfect
course.
condition and not hypothermic. That's why legend has it that El Pombero has him all night. The sunrise is what protects him from hypothermia. He had
So,
no cuts. He had nothing. He was in perfect condition. When reporters asked Jorge later if a barefoot person could get hurt, he replied, "Yes, that's obvious. A child of that age with that build can't walk more than 100 meters on those paths."
hmm
Quoting further, "I do believe because I was born in the province and our parents and grandparents told us about him and described him in the same way. My uncles went through the same thing and weren't lucky enough to have been searched for according to the beliefs." Going further, when they found Octavio, he was completely naked, slightly dehydrated, but unharmed. A barefoot 2-year-old who can barely walk,
hmm
sleeping in the middle of a goddamn jungle in an area with no access points in or out. I think it's very clear that El Pombero
Yeah.
knows how to take kids but not take care of them.
Yeah. Well, to
Right?
be fair, it just sounds like most adults' wild nights out. They wake up in the forest half nude, a little bit dehydrated. But this is a 2-year-old, so to say that it has been
Bro,
right. Let me get the timeline right. How long after was it? Was the baby found? Like a week, 2 days? Okay.
Look how fucking tiny this kid is, dude.
So small.
Look at the size of the water bottle next to that child.
Yeah.
Like,
That's a tiny
seriously, do
kid.
you
It
see,
couldn't have made it in the jungle. Like, not at all.
dude? The water bottle. Would you say that it's about
Half the height? Maybe a little over half?
2/5, 3/5 the size of that kid?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I would
I
say
don't
it's
know how to
almost
ratio.
little over half the height, as you could just say. It's like, yeah, it's a little over half the height of that kid. And to say they went and survived in the jungle for 2 days doesn't
No,
seem very
just
feasible, especially with animals.
just just no. That's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
all there is to that. And they obviously took him to the hospital fucking immediately.
yeah,
And ran all the tests and got him checked up, and he was in recovery. There was no, more or less, he was fine.
yeah. No long term problems.
He
No
did not,
long-term.
like, he didn't even have like any cuts or bruises or scrapes on his bare ass feet
Mm-hmm.
in the middle of the jungle, in the middle of fucking South America.
Then that makes it sound like it was the kid was carried. Was carried there.
Precisely. But with that said, they did a lot of testing for some things that might not be obviously visible, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, there was no sort of intrusive assaults or anything like that made
Yeah,
on this very small child's body.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and again, it begs a lot of questions because people desperate, like hundreds at this point, hundreds of people desperately just trying to get through this area needed to spend forever with fucking machetes and teams of people taking turns just to get there. And then
Mm-hmm.
when they got there was no way out besides their machete paths. So,
Yeah,
like, if it was a human being doing this, how the fuck did they get in there to
yeah.
drop the child off?
There would probably be obvious signs of footsteps, something like that, of brush movement too, of to get to that area, like a trail of some sort that they could have probably found. Especially if it was police, they would have been
I
like,
don't know.
"There's a trail, footsteps,"
Yeah.
or
I,
leaves
at this point,
moved.
yeah, and I guarantee you by this point, with this much attention on it, the police investigated the scene where they found the child.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
it's fucking insane. It's
Mm-hmm.
absolutely fucking, even it's just, this is nuts. But if you see photos of this terrain, we're talking about like central Paraguay, bro. No, like you and I, we live in Appalachia, and that shit's intense hiking. This shit, bro, this terrain makes going to the mailbox look like climbing Mount Everest. Like, it's not a fucking joke.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like not a joke. Yeah, we're talking like a mile and a half, like, into it, in some random fucking clearing, which is a notorious place that El Pombero likes to hang out, is clearings
Mm.
in the middle of the jungle.
Mm.
Like, also the fact there were zero trails going in or out of this whole thing. More or less, from what I could find about El Pombero, there's some legends that say he does things to kids, but I'm gonna be honest, I found nothing at all that would even come close to like a quote from what I
Yeah.
would consider a legitimate source. Even, 1958 old book that I illegally downloaded from a cultural website. Um, y'all should lock down your code better. Uh, Even that, when I went through and I like got it translated, there was no references of accounts of anything like that.
Hmm.
I think that that's a mix up with another god who does like to lust after children and then give them to a different god who has the greatest name I've ever heard, called an ow ow, because it's a sound that they make.
Ow,
There,
ow.
it's A-O. It's literally
Ow, ow.
like, it's literally. Um, so he takes children, takes them into a specific area, pulls out their eyes, has his way with them, and then gives them to his brother, who eats them.
Mm.
And I think that people are mixing. I think that non-Guarani, but like, people are mixing up El Pombero with that bullshit. But
Mm-hmm.
he don't fuck around with none of that bullshit. He generally takes kids.
Yeah.
He doesn't try to do anything bad to him. I think he's like a little, like I don't.
He's like the third brother that they're just like, ooh, they look at him and it's like, he's got something.
He's
Got a
like the
screw loose.
third brother made between first cousins.
Yeah,
Loki.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Well,
yeah.
what's crazy is those two gods you were just talking about. At least they waste not.
Mhm.
You know, like the eyeballs are getting eaten. You know, so it's like they're definitely not wasting any of the kid.
we,
Um,
I think there's 4 or 5 evil sons or evil children of the Guarani like gods, and
mhm.
that's their title. Is like the evil kids. Like
Evil
it's just like
children.
they're just all evil.
Yeah, you
Um,
can just call most kids
we
that
should
now,
do
though.
we should
So
do we should do an episode on them. Not because I've done all the research. I'll dig just as hard, but because like it actually is like a really like holy shit. I've like just cool concepts, cool ideas and stuff.
yeah.
It's well when it comes to El Pombero, there's countless stories like Octavio's, children who just up and vanish and then are found completely naked, alive, slightly dehydrated, but with hardly a scratch on them. They get taken to a hospital and there's no signs of sexual assault or anything nefarious you might assume from
Yeah.
how they were found completely naked in the middle of nowhere. Well,
Yeah.
as for the places that they're found, it's not uncommon for the children to be located. Sorry. I forgot to delete a line from my script.
Mm-hmm.
As for where they disappear from and where they're discovered, that gets even stranger. With stories around El Pombero, it's not uncommon for a child who can barely walk to go missing for only an hour or two, but somehow they end up miles away in a location that requires crossing mountains, fences, rivers, and dense jungle.
Hmm.
These places would be hard to reach even for a full grown adult with a straight path.
Mm-hmm.
It would be a struggle
Yeah.
to get to these spots, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is why I'm going to propose a second cryptid, speed babies. They're a new generation of human
You
which are
know,
able to rapidly cross the jungle. And thanks to RFK getting fluoride out of our drinking water, we're going to
we can
tap
see them.
into our original powers.
We can
I
no,
was
we
going to
can
call
see
them
the speed
race
babies.
babies, but when I read that out loud,
It's not as good.
I
Speed
shouldn't say
babies.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
race babies.
Maybe
Race
like
baby.
flash babies.
It sounds bad. Race
It
babies
does
sounds
sounds
bad,
babies.
but if
Yeah.
you stop and think, you're like, it's not actually saying anything.
Yeah.
I just want to say race babies. Fuck is a
They're,
race baby?
they're the fastest of our kind. Mm-hmm.
Making
Take everything out. Yeah.
exactly
Mm-hmm.
race babies.
God, race babies. I mean,
It sounds so bad, but
it's
it's
so
like
weird. Yeah.
you're
But it's
not
fine.
declaring anything.
Yeah. It's just fine. Now
Babies.
I want to
All
see
right, so we'll go
babies running
go with the
marathons.
politically correct version of this totally hypothetical situation.
Cryptid.
Speed babies
Speed
who
babies
are
or
on
cryptids.
methamphetamine and have never touched fluoride.
Mm-hmm. But you do have to be very careful because they were Nazis. Uh, because
No, that was
Mangala,
the race babies.
yeah, the race babies. Mangala, he definitely
Yeah.
worked on them, and they got
The
methamphetamines.
speed
Yes.
babies are the babies of the race babies. It's babies having
Ye-
babies. It was a whole
mhm.
problem in the 90s
It's
when
like the
people were
evil
like,
kids.
15-year-olds have babies. That's not when my great. Oh, shit. Actually, yeah, that was. My
They
great.
did do that.
Well, they were about a year old. That's not what literally my parents did when their parents were the
Mm-hmm.
first generation to not have kids at 15 and 16 years old. And then everybody
Yeah.
freaked out in the 90s. But that's a whole. Digging into culture too much. Now, I mentioned Octavio's father messing up when he broke with tradition, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I forgot to mark that. Now, I mentioned Octavio's father messing up when he broke with tradition, and part of the reason I picked Octavio's story is because it's so well highlights one of the few beliefs surrounding El Pombero that everyone agrees on. You can summon and form a pact with El Pombero by leaving offerings for him in the crook of a tree, near the edge of the forest, or honestly, after reading everybody's little spot they like to do it, any small, slightly hidden spot that random people won't see. The whole point is that it's namely just between you and El Pompero. Other folks, it's not prohibited that other folks know where you're doing it, but you kind
Yeah.
of spots that aren't generally seen, right?
Yeah. Secret meetings. Yeah.
Yeah, like some people like leave it out on a table where only they sit in the middle of the night to smoke a cigarette, like shit like that. Like it's
Yeah.
very personal.
I didn't
right?
know you could summon Pombero, but that's cool.
You 100% can summon Pombero. And one of the reasons, the first reason, which we'll approach here and is more closely related to De Silva and Octavio's disappearance, is you would summon him because you want something. Specifically,
Okay.
when you do this, you need to leave him tobacco, liquor, and honey. Those are his three favorite things.
Yeah.
And I'm not shitting you when I say he's almost always depicted with at least two of those three things. Like almost always. He has a cigar in his mouth and he has like a bottle of liquor in his hand. Loves the shit. I don't understand that at all, but I could go for a cigarette right now.
It might have been too easy if he liked beer to just call him Pombero all the time. So honestly, it is just too easy if he liked beer. So he's just like, I cannot take the
That's
nickname. The nickname would have stuck.
I'm not going to shit you. That's probably the name for him in like 6 villages, and it probably caused me to go down a rabbit hole trying to be like, who the fuck is this
Pombero.
Biro guy that sounds just like him? Is there a difference?
It's just the uncle of the guy of Octavia. Just getting like, yeah, he likes beer. It's like elbowing. He's like, yeah, yeah. They start passing down. Yeah, they're beer. He loves beer, and that's why the baby was taken because the uncle was being an asshole. It's also why they arrested him. So they're just like, you don't be talking
I feel
shit
bad
about
for the
Pombero.
two folks that got arrested. Because to follow
Yeah,
up with
for
that,
sure.
obviously they weren't involved. If they straight up fucking they got arrested
Yeah.
and then the child wasn't found until like 24 hours later. Y'all saw that kid. It was way the fuck too small to be in the jungle.
Yeah.
I'm 6 foot tall and I'm too small to be in the jungle alone. All
Yeah.
right. Like,
Can you imagine
that's just
their
not
relief
happening.
that the kid was
Oh
found
my
too?
god.
To be like, after they were arrested, to just be like, I've been saying it, like, we didn't take this kid, like, obviously.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. So specifically, you need to leave him tobacco, liquor, and honey. Now, here's where there's a catch. I told you up top, there's always a catch. If you want him to do a favor for you or fulfill a specific requirement or request, you have to leave offerings for him every night in the same spot for 30 days, each time saying out loud what your request is. But if you mess this up, he'll mess you up. Usually at first,
really?
it's done by small things to you, right? So it's just like minor annoyances like
Yeah.
unlocking and opening up your livestock gates, breaking random things,
Pretty annoying.
throwing rocks
Very annoying.
non-stop at the roof of your house,
That would
or
drive me crazy.
imitating the voices of people you know. He's got
That's
a
annoying.
whole
That's even
cookbook
more annoying. Yeah, yeah.
filled with little weird acts of mischief. Like, could you imagine if you heard I don't know, your brother's voice coming from your bathroom right now?
Yeah.
and then you got up to went to go look and nobody's there.
I'll walk out of the house. It's like, yeah, you
And
can
then
have it.
it
Yours.
just fucking mischief, like really mischief for an entity like this, right? Well,
Yeah.
fact is, these are all meant to be harmless reminders that, frankly, you haven't been paying
He's like, come on, pay your toll.
your El Pombero protection racket. Now, at this point, if you don't listen to these warnings, things will very quickly escalate. Kidnappings, beatings, murder. He'll target you, your spouse, your kids. He's completely fucking indiscriminate. A little one-man mobster who will make sure they never find the fucking body. Like, that's basically
Yeah.
what he flips to real fast.
Yeah. Hey, you, get over here. We're going to go out there.
Well, just as he took a 2-year-old into an area that took days to fucking reach and like that, he's like, I'll never find you. Give me my fucking honey, cigar,
Yeah.
and liquor. You know,
God,
like,
that's so.
you're the one that started this, bitch. Like,
He's so
you
petty.
started this.
Yeah, he's like, I'm going to finish it. It's so petty. It's like the little pettiness.
He's a sensitive little guy. He's a sensitive little guy.
Got
Well,
Napoleon syndrome too, probably.
now, with that said, a lot of people don't have specific requests for him, but still want to be within his good graces.
For sure.
And I don't really blame them because he just targets random motherfuckers and will just fuck with them. So it's like, you kind of, if you're living in the area, you should kind of just be like, hey, buddy, hi, we're neighbors, you know. Well, to do that, if you want to do this at home, it's the exact same process as before, but more lenient because it's not a business arrangement. Basically, you're not asking for a specific favor, you're just trying to make contact, you're trying to become friends. So he's more chill, right?
Yeah.
So instead of, say, having to give him all three things, smokes, spirits, and sweets, for 30 days, you can pretty much just pick one of them, or honestly anything you think that he would enjoy, which he's a huge fan of small fruits. And you can leave that in whatever your secret offering spot is. As a benefit of doing this, he'll take care of you, look after your property, protect members of your close family, and he'll even start leaving little gifts for you in the same place you left stuff for him. It's kind of one of the signs that the relationship exists now, is like,
Yeah.
you put honeycomb in this little spot underneath a jar, underneath an old log in the woods where nothing could fucking get to. It's impossible for anything to get there. Even the ants can't get to it in the middle of the rainforest. And you go back the next day and there's like a guava in it. And you're just like, what the fucking shit? Like, this is a closed container. I haven't said, like, they don't even have guavas at our local market right now.
Yeah.
Like, it's some crazy
Just
shit,
appeared out of
right?
nowhere.
And and it's like, there's some really cool stories around. They're not long enough to give, segments of the episode to, because it's just like, and then there was this, it's like, it was one sentence. But there's some really cool stories around shit like that from the folks in this area.
Yeah.
And fuck, I question my reality. I'm not gonna get into knocking theirs, but it's kind of a cool thing. And that's kind of what gets set up, right?
Okay.
Kind of cool is that when you pass on, he'll stay loyal to your family, often attaching himself to just one specific child. So you make this pact with El Pombero, who can fuck your shit up. Don't get don't get it twisted.
Yeah.
He can fuck your shit up. And he's gonna be like locked in, loyal to your family. 100%. You know what I'm saying? I'm always a fan of getting demons on my side. Boom. He's locked in. But there's a catch. He's kind of sensitive and gets incredibly aggressive
God.
if he feels neglected or ignored. So
Oh,
once the
bitch.
friendship is established, you need to make sure there's an offering made every single night in the same spot for the rest of your life.
No, thank you. No,
And
thank you.
I have articles I'll be posting in the final cut of this episode of literally people where it's like, this man's been giving El Pombero cigarettes for decades. And he's like, I don't regret a day of it. You know, like, it's like, it's like there's
Yeah.
so many. Well, after you die, thing is, the child that he attaches to needs to make offerings when you pass on, or he'll take it personally,
What a
and
bitch.
things will escalate, as was the case with De Silva's father, who, depending on the article you go to, doesn't say and actually speaks against giving offerings to El Pombero. But on the articles where they're direct quotes, he 100% gave offerings to El
Yeah,
Pombero when his
yeah.
son went missing. Again, we're going off of sensational tabloids. I really
Yeah.
tried to just go off of the quotes of people.
God, I liked this guy at the beginning. You know, I thought he was just like a little trickster and like do crazy little things. But man, I hate him
Mhm.
now. I'm like, he's that like
Why?
terrible roommate, the fucking Pombera. It's like that terrible roommate you have that just moved in, you know, doesn't really pay rent,
Hmm.
and just like takes and takes. And when you come home with like some pizza, you know, you really come home with this
Mm-hmm.
pizza, and they look at you when you walk in. They're just sitting on the sitting on there smoking a cigarette. Yep, sitting on there smoking a cigarette. Looks at you and be like, "Did you bring me any?" And you're just like,
Yeah.
"No, this is my pizza. Like, no, this is my. I hate. I don't like this. This is the. I just
Let's
want to
just
punch him."
zoom in here. Oh, wait, that's too close. Wait,
That was
that's
very too close.
oh,
That's
wait,
way
that's
too
too
close. Just
close.
leave it there. It's fine.
There we go.
Uh,
They didn't make it hairy or make the feet backwards, which
yeah, the
is they
feet.
kind of fucked up on
It
that.
looks like the
But
legs are almost backwards. It's so weird looking. But I hate this
that's the
thing.
other depiction of him, which is just the
That's
complete
completely different.
opposite of.
Yeah, that's like a goblin, a little goblin, little
Yeah,
mischievous little goblin.
more like that.
Hate this thing. Sorry, I know this is like drawing up. I hate this thing. It's just so annoying, especially like, oh, you didn't give me any food, just like your dad did. It's like, shut up. Go get your own damn
Yeah,
food.
but how can I put this? So living on the edge of the rainforest is not easy.
For sure.
Go figure.
Yeah.
And this is seen as a way for protection. There's a lot of stories. They're very fucking brief, but it's folks who talked about some impending tragedy or some
Mm-hmm.
sort of freak accident where it's like they're
Yeah.
working in the fields and a 400-year-old tree just decides to die at that fucking moment and snap and fall exactly where they would have been standing, like shit like
Yeah.
that. And they heard the whistles of El Pombero, which is
Yeah.
something that brings him very close to another character that we covered, El Cibon,
It's c'est
who
bon. Yep.
whistles.
Yep.
Yeah. Um, so El Pombero, I can't quote how many times I've read that he can transform into a log, transform into a rock sitting next to it. Like he could just fucking anything
Do
he
anything.
wants, he
Yeah.
can transform into, right?
Yeah.
Which explains why it's impossible to describe his physical appearance, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's also an anomaly because so many people recognize him when they see him at the
Yeah.
same time. And again, I'm trying to go into the cultural context of like people believe he's real. So I'm trying to
For
put my
sure.
brain in that
For
area. I'm
sure.
not trying to knock anything. I'm just trying to be like, okay, well, how would I rationalize it? Because I assume they're as rational as I am.
Yeah.
Um, but so he could transform pretty much into anything. And one of the favorite things that he loves to do is he has a very specific kind of whistle that's like a very high pitched, very eerie, and very hard to place chicken chirp, like a little baby chicken chirping. But it's very strange and it's very off. And when you hear it, you have no fucking clue where the hell it's coming from. It's just
Yeah.
like,
It's like ventriloquism. Ventriloquism. You know.
exactly. No.
Mm-hmm.
Ventriloquism is something that people, that was another one of his many nicknames. It was like he's the ventriloquist of the jungle. He can make anything close sound far, anything far sound close, da 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 da. Like he just can make anything come from anywhere. He can make the sounds with his mouth of people clapping, which was a very weird description.
It's a
I
weird thing to
never thought of.
say. Yeah.
Never thought I would read that. I
Yeah,
was like,
yeah.
what? I'm like, it said of humans clapping, of a viper hissing, um, of a sick human being, which I think was multiple layers of mistranslation. It probably meant distressed.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I could think of that would be
He
close, but
screams.
who the fuck knows? Yeah, yeah. Um, pretty much anything. But specifically, he loves to make the sound of birds at night. And one of the warning signs that he's in the area is every fucking animal shuts the fuck up.
Quiet, eerie silence.
And for the rainforest,
It should never be quiet.
that would be horrifying. Like I've never been, I've always wanted to go. I hope I can make it before it disappears. But everything that I've ever seen about somebody that goes there says like the one thing nobody ever tells you about is that at night it's so fucking loud. So like all of those, but everything you've ever seen on the Discovery Channel is screaming its ass off and in the middle of fucking and eating at the same time. It's killing,
Yeah.
fucking, eating at the same time. Everything,
Mm-hmm.
and it's so loud. And a lot of folks, for the first few nights that they get there, can't sleep because it's so goddamn loud. To
Yeah.
imagine that going silent is
That's
horrifying.
creepier. Yeah, that's
And
creepy.
then to have
Something.
one source of sound coming around you that's just being manipulated is like so. Throw yourself in that. That's some trippy shit to think about.
Something's
That's a
hunting,
rock
and that's
concert
the
goes
sign.
quiet, and then you just
Yeah.
hear, "Hey, Joey, what are you doing?"
Mm-hmm.
It's me, your mom, just like kind of bouncing around in the middle of a fuck it. It's like ah.
and
Oh
and I
my
and I understand the
god.
like the cultural significance of it, you know,
Mm.
of El
Ugh.
Pombero, with
Mhm.
people living on the edge of the woods, you know, and I
Mhm.
understand the physical significance of it too, and
Yeah.
I'm describing it as if El Pombero was coming over to my house and just sitting there, and then he was like one of your roommates, and God, that would make a
Yeah.
terrible show. It's like what is it? What's that show? The Two and a Half Men. It's
Lost?
like
Oh,
Two and a Half Men and
yeah.
One Pombero, and you know, it's just kind of sitting there, just like
Two and a half
what,
Pombero. Yeah.
two and a half Pomberos, and you're just like, what the hell is going on here? Why is the house not comes home? Why is the house not clean? And he's like, he didn't leave me any liquor, you know, and he's like, well,
Yeah.
it's not how we do things here, you know.
Check again. Where'd my house go? Where'd my liquor go? Or
Yeah,
like,
yeah. Bring the
yeah.
liquor,
The
you'll
worst,
get your house
the
back.
worst kind of drunk, the one with
Mm-hmm.
power. You
Yeah.
know,
Oh God.
you
Yeah,
don't
because
want
then it can
that.
just do whatever. Yeah.
You don't want that, right?
Mm-hmm. It's the
Um,
person who owns the
no,
house.
but El Pombero is absolutely he's fascinating though.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, so we're distance. I'm going to assume most folks hearing this are very distant from ever knowing about him. A
Mm-hmm.
and from any of the culture and shit around him. B. So you probably just barely heard of him if you're finding this and don't know shit about him. If that's you, when you meet the criteria of most of the English speaking world and whatever languages I'm forgetting, there's only two there's English and Spanish. But if you somehow find yourself in a third,
Mm-hmm.
um, the character's fascinating because there is so much similarity in his stories, in his behavior, and his powers, and his potential, and just everything about him. So much similarity to other cryptids, spirits, and legends. Right. So his behavior is incredibly close to fairies, who
Mm-hmm.
traditionally stole kids. And were
Yeah.
also about this size as El Pombero, right? They weren't the little Tinkerbell fucking
Yeah.
size things. They were bigger. In the northeastern United States, specifically in the Bridgewater Triangle, like the New England area, you have the Pugwudgies, right?
Yep.
Which
The
like picture
Pugwudgies. Yep.
Ewoks from Star Wars, or you know, and inflate a Bigfoot, like one that's not fully inflated. Those are the Pukwudgies. One of the most famous cases, one of the most famous stories about the Pukwudgie, which if you look up anything about him is probably going to be the first thing that comes up, or them, is that there are these little tribes of creatures, generally described as hairy. Again, picture tiny Bigfoots. And they have a hypnotic power where they're just like, come into the woods with us. Come into the woods with, and they're able to kind of like fucking control you. Very famous case of this guy who's just like walking his dog. He's like, "I'm going into the woods with you. What are you, little man?" And he's just like, come into the woods. He's like, I'm scared. And the dog's like, bark. And he's like, I agree with you, Roscoe. And they like run off. And then that's just repeated in every documentary ever made about him.
The
But
dog was the clear hero.
yeah. The dog was the El Pombero. But
yes.
so they kind of, the way that they're so hairy, the size, everything about them does remind me so much of Pukwudgies, where I'm like, oh, this is really close.
Yeah.
If in El Pombero's legend it was more clear, which is way too much to ask, I realize that now, but if it was more clear that there were multiple, then I'm like, Pukwudgies. These are South American Pukwudgies, like 100%. You know, like the fit is so close. But then you also have elves, and you have leprechauns, then you have goblins. It meets across the board of so many things. Now, past all of that, so many of these cases are nearly identical to so many national park missing person cases documented by David Pilatus. Everything, literally everything. The impossible distance traveled over difficult terrain in unreasonably short spans of time, finding the person or the person's remains in a spot that has already been heavily searched, memory loss, the complete, disappearance of the victim at the moment they're taken, where it's like they're walking 15 feet from here to there, and it's like, where the fuck did they go? And then everybody starts to panic and shit like that kind of shit. To take it even further, Jacques Vallée in Passport to Magonia, he exhaustively documents the very long, nearly universal history of trickster-like entities appearing in almost every culture on the planet. They all have striking similarities between each other, right? And these are at times when they are separated by continents, cultures, and centuries.
Yep.
Everybody has this role. In literature, the trickster role is literally a theme. Like, this is a thing.
It's thematic. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the most base level concepts of our imagination of like utilities, right? That's the very atheist perspective of it, and which is totally fine and it's very useful, but it is interesting that just everybody has it, regardless of how advanced, quote unquote, they are in any specific direction, right? Whether it's art, whether it's warfare, whether it's agricultural development, what have you, doesn't matter where the fuck they all, this was like one of the earliest seeds. And while their literal appearance changes, their behavior, personality, and the side effects of a human encountering one of these trickster-like entities seems to be timeless. Memory loss, or foggy memory, shape-shifting, or screen memories, when part of or all of your memory is replaced by something else. Often with alien abductions, it's a vivid memory of an owl. Intense whistling sounds. Sounds a lot like UFOs whirring.
It does. The
Rape.
yeah.
Reoccurring sexual scenes and experiences.
Interesting.
Kidnapping, or said another way, abduction. The ability to get into and to leave from any house. Invisibility, The ability to paralyze someone with just a touch. Many, and I mean many, abductees report aliens essentially taking their index finger and tapping them on the head, leaving the abductee either knocked out cold or left in a daze.
Hmm.
Experiences and encounters passed down through the family.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, usually
Yep.
starting in the early to mid-teens.
Now you're
The
making me
range
hate
of
aliens.
completely good and completely terrifying encounters.
Yeah. Betty
So
Andreessen.
before we yeah,
Extremely great,
yeah.
and then you have
Quasga versus the red eyes in the desert of Mojave
oh yeah,
incident.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, the Brooklyn Bridge
But
incident, UFO incident. Yeah.
yeah. So if there's any I realized looking into, and this is what's so fascinating about sociology or anthropology as a whole, is looking at it very
Mm.
objective, where it's like everything coming into me is completely new. I was like, wow, this is that, this is that, this is that, and I had to step back and put myself into a mirror and be like, same shit I believe,
Yep.
100%. If there's anything that I would be like slightly suspicious of, maybe a little bit, superstitious of, same shit.
Yeah.
They are, and this is not any kind of grand revelation, but I do feel like it's important to remember as we look here and be like, oh, it's one of these, trickster gods. They're a dime a dozen. They got them,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
just like, okay, but stop and look at yourself.
Yeah.
you know,
What are the parallels between?
maybe that's just a big deal for me. Maybe other folks are like, I was already enlightened, and fuck you. Whatever. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Congrats. But for me, it really forced me to like kind of like step back and look at everything that like I'm really into, I'm really interested in, I'm fascinated by,
Yeah.
I'm willing to dabble with believing. And frankly, I had to shut the fuck up and sit down. And I think that's a good way to approach this, is just kind of be like, hey, um, maybe there is something. I don't know what the fuck it is. I don't know if all the powers are exaggerated. I don't know. Like let's knock
Yeah.
it down to a reasonable level and see where we can find an agreement. But maybe there is some shit in the
Mm-hmm.
rainforest where it does target small kids.
Could be.
And it's crazy as fuck. There was a long-standing belief in this area that there were small tribes, or specifically one small tribe, of incredibly hairy humans who in every other way look normal, but they're fucking like completely covered in hair. Just
Yeah.
boom. And that they came out of certain confined spaces, caves, and shit like that. And they were cannibals, and they would steal kids, and they would fuck around with things, and they would sometimes, some of them would be curious of the other people in the area, and they would go explore shit at night, and then they would disappear.
Yeah.
And that might exist.
Yeah.
that might pop
It
up in
could.
the news tomorrow. That it's new tribe of all hairy people. Like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wouldn't be
Very
shocked.
short. Yeah. Very short.
Yeah.
All I know about this is that you made me like this thing at the beginning, and then you made me hate him at the end.
This
El
is return
Pombero
for.
is enemy number
Yeah,
one for me now.
I wouldn't say that.
No, I wouldn't say
Um,
enemy number one. That's giving him too much power. It's giving Pombero too much power. Maybe 10. The enemies of the post office is number one. So I would say that's the biggest thing. But uh, truthfully, looking into it, you could compare a lot of it, like you're saying, to UFOs and abductions and similar
everything.
styles of things. And the weird thing to me is that it's passed down to it's not weird, it's just like an interesting thing to me is that it gets passed
It's
down through
hereditary.
family. Yeah, hereditary through family. And that if which also pisses me off too about that, because it's like, why do I have to pay for your sins, Dad? Why do I have to pay for you trying to protect everything? But I mean, I guess in the idea of it, it's like, no, this is what our family believes, this is what we do, we protect
Yeah.
our family around here by offering up what's a little liquor, what's a little liquor, what's a little cigarette, I just
Remembering your
also
culture.
remembering your culture. I also want to say though, what would really suck is if the first day, on the first gift that you give somebody, like your significant other or something like that, you don't want to like
Yeah.
give them this grandiose, like beautiful gift, because then you got to start living. You got to keep going up. So imagine that the person on their first day like gives them like 30 bottles of liquor, like whole packs of tobacco and stuff like that, and then it's like, all right, you got to keep one and up in that, and they're just like, I can't. Like, I don't have enough money to keep this relationship going. Sorry, Pombero. Like,
There is literally, it's funny you say that. This is gonna,
mm-hmm,
I don't know what I'm gonna do with all the screenshotted and downloaded PDFs of translated articles I'd made or
mm-hmm,
got or whatever. There's one specific one where it's like da 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 da. Man has been doing, giving gifts to Pombero for decades. He spends his Christmas bonus every year on buying 400 cartons of cigarettes, and he does this gladly. He broke down his whole process, and this is like a recent. This is from like 20. I can't
yeah, it's
stress
not
enough how much like
the
the
80s.
belief and the reality for the folks that are there. Like this is not old.
Mm-hmm,
One of the cases that I almost covered, it ended in January of 2025. Like
mm-hmm,
a few
yeah,
months
yeah.
ago. This is very current. But no, people do it. People 100% the same way that they do, I don't know, fucking communion and shit, right? They go to church on Sundays. This is
Tithe,
the
yeah.
exact.
It's
And
a tithe.
yeah, and it's reading into it and I'm just like, can't knock it.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of this is wild. And some of these cases are nuts. Granted, El Pombero has been blamed for everything from molestation, car accidents to, the batteries missing from your remote. Like everything
Yeah.
on both ends of the spectrum, because he's fit that role of just like, instead of saying God damn it, you
Mm-hmm.
blame him. And he's
Yeah.
everything and nothing, and maybe
Pombero,
that's a
damn
role.
it.
I don't
Mm-hmm.
know.
Pombero is sitting up there, like listening to all these accusations. He's like, whoa, whoa, whoa! I did not take the batteries out of your remote control. Molestation, I did, but I did that.
Terrifying. He mistook his partner for El Pombero and killed him. This is dark humor. If you don't care for dark humor, please leave now. Like seriously, you're just gonna be like, this sucks and I hate you and that wasn't funny and da 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 da. That's okay. I get it. We're not all in agreement.
Yeah,
Joe,
I'm excited for this gift.
I
The
really,
pun.
I really 100% should not be laughing at this. But when I came across this article, Joey, look, I was
I'm
already
ready.
going to
I'm
hell.
ready. I'm ready. That's
I
fine.
was
Let's do
already
it.
going to hell.
Let's
Like,
go there.
okay, it's a little bit warmer. You know what? Great. I don't like the cold, anyways. It's showing up. There we go. All right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
I'm ready.
gonna read this to you, and just start over, and then I'm gonna show you the image from the top of the article. Oh, it's getting warm in here. Terrifying. He mistook his partner for El Pompero and killed him on September 28th, 2024, when Pablo, long name I can't pronounce, a security guard working at a mechanic shop. He was high as hell on a cocktail on all sorts of different drugs.
Mm-hmm.
And he saw Gaston Almirano, his co-worker, walk in. Without hesitation, Pablo panicked and began stabbing Gaston repeatedly, 20 times in total.
God.
But thanks to Pablo's impaired motor functions behind the wheel, Gaston was able to manage get away from the assault long enough to call 911 and report everything that happened before mortally succumbing to his injuries. Yes, the victim dies, and I'm laughing about it. Just hold on, it gets worse. Pablo fled, and 10 days later was captured by the police, charged with the murder of Gaston. When police notified Pablo why he'd been arrested, he said, "Well, I was high and mistook him for Pombero."
Oh my
But it was me.
god.
It's so
Damn, it's a striking resemblance.
I'm sorry. I had to read through like 30 of these articles, and this is the same side by side they use for everyone.
That's awesome.
That's so fucked
They
up.
let him off, right? They let him off, right? And they're just like, no, definitely.
Oh, no, his ass is locked up. He's probably on death or some shit.
Oh yeah, he's probably on death row. Probably killed him already.
Folks not watching this, you really fucking should. But Gaston was a little person. So Pablo freaked out and stabbed a little person thinking they were Pombero.
Well, even with the hat, it kind of makes him look like he has that style of hair. Not because of the hat, just the way that.
Arguably the same expression.
The
same
same
expression. Different noses and eyes, but same
different
expression.
nose and eyes. Yeah.
Same, just why did they do this to him?
They knew what. They all knew what they were doing. This is
bro.
And even the picture behind it is like ghosted in.
This is the offensive humor portion of the show. This is fucked up. I know this is fucked up. I've had weeks to not laugh at this, but like.
But you laughed every single day.
Bro.
It's fine. I mean, it's great. This is
fucked up. This is very. You should not laugh at a victim around shit. But like, I'm giving credit. Look, I'm saying this on air now. It's recorded forever. If I die, even violently, horribly, if it's like, oh my god, how could that happen to anybody? And it's under such comedic circumstances. Please laugh at my death. If you don't, you never loved me.
Yeah, I will.
Saying it now. Fucking, you better laugh.
Yeah.
Look, I don't want what I can't dish, and that's something I want. If I died, it's like, you wouldn't believe it. Somebody named Gil with 2 L's stabbed him to death. That's fucking hilarious. You should laugh at that.
Yeah,
like,
he was wearing
oh my god, he was
hat.
real.
He was real. I thought he was fake. Me and K-Boos and D-Boos.
I thought that was him playing the same role the whole time. Yeah. Now I realize Gil was just smoking a cigarette during those breaks.
Yeah, Gil was just like, hey, I gotta go outside.
You fools.
Yeah.
Okay.
Damn.
Dude, it's so fucked up. But again, characters like this play a role in every society. It's some fascinating shit. It's fucking funny. Damn. All that said, Joey, I have a little list here of my favorite cryptids. My favorite black cat heads, if you will.
Yeah.
And they include Jaden, Jackie, Ave, Lucas, Bobby, D, Thomas, Little Mystery, Yellow Bear, Tim, Ian, Rochelle, Dwayne, aka Snatch Twat, Marissa, Max, Morgan Dragonpaw from the Star Blood Chronicles podcast, Miller's Monsters, who's one of the only English-speaking people on the entire internet who had any sort of accurate breakdown of El Pombero. Extra special shout out to you, motherfucker. Multiple years ago, you gave a brief little TikTok, just a few seconds long. And the only shit you covered turned out to be the accurate shit. Shout outs to you, bud.
Hell yeah.
Alyssa, Bree, Gavin, infamous leader of the chicken cult, James Michael Extreme, Kristen from the Paranormal Girl podcast, and most fashionable,
the fashionablest
of our sexiest producer tier,
Fashion Able.
Copy Kitty.
Copy Kitty. Hell yeah. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you all so much for listening. But no, I would like to know, there's so much more. This is trying to break down and quickly explain an entire culture's intricate beliefs in like an hour and a half at the end of the day. That's a lot. But this is incredibly well known across like the Spanish speaking world, and it's just spread. If you go and type in Pombrero on TikTok, oh my god, there are so many results. Like they are just whoosh, like everywhere. 99% get mistranslated into the firefighter.
Pombero.
But yeah. And there's like only a handful that are actually in English. Like there's seriously only like 2 or 3. And I was like, how is this? What?
Yeah.
This is, how did I not know? You know?
Yeah.
It's a trip.
Hell yeah. Thank you all so much for listening. And next week, we're going to get some good stuff.
We love y'all. Bye.
Bye. Just talking to people in the chat. A lot of people are entranced by this story, wanting to know, like, thoughts on his origin. Like, was he, start like this? Could interpretive dance, yeah. Start like this, or did it, like, you're on mute. Did it start like this, or did it, like, turn into this,
Yeah, okay. So that's another rabbit hole. Everything about El Pombero is a 100% complete contradiction.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot emphasize that enough. That's why this episode is being put out so fucking late. I'm obsessed with being like, I don't want to regret these facts that I'm saying here, a year from now when people, whatever. I want to deliver honest to God like truth, even if it drives me insane. And part of that is the epistemology. Part of that is the whole fucking just the labels, the names that are applied to him get kind of insane. So it's complicated, to put it very simply. And to this day, God damn it, there's anthropological arguments that are made that he's only like 250 years old.
Okay.
There's cultural arguments that say he's thousands of years old.
Well, I guess it
So
just depends on who's studying him, Like, who's the studier.
Exactly.
Descriptor.
Who's studying them, and then you kind of get into this confusion of like, well, if a lot of people knew how to speak Spanish, how many of those folks knew how to write Spanish and could document shit for themselves?
Yeah. Or spoke
Okay, so
Guarani.
well, then that becomes a whole rabbit hole and stuff there. But there's a very unique in the Guarani. There's a very unique I guess you could just say creation myth, the same way that Christians have
Okay.
like their creation myth. There's a very unique creation myth behind that, and there's some deviations of how El Pombero came into being. He was either the son of two gods that fucked. Basically, there was the original god, and then there was another one that was made later. There two original gods. One was made later. The third one was made later. One of the originals fucked the other one. El Pombero popped out, and then there's like 60. But when you look into
Myths
the
or like
authors,
creation ideas.
yeah, like the origin stories, right? But when you look into the authors, and I imagine folks that are from there, they might be completely offended by this, and that forgive me for my ignorance, but I was left precarious by any cultural bias that those authors might have had, at least the ones that I found, because I was like, bro, you're a fucking missionary who's coming in
Yeah,
and like
it's
part of the raping and pillaging and murdering and enslaving group of people. Why the fuck should I trust your interpretation of their culture? Like, I have a really hard time with that, you know?
yeah.
um
It
so
kind of makes me
It
think
gets
about the
complicated
idea.
there.
Yeah, it makes me
Yeah.
think of the idea that a lot of the what would I say? A lot of the ideals and like the descriptors that they use for El Pombero can also be added to the colonizing people and the Jesuits and the people went down there, like the same things that El Pombero was doing
That's
that the Jesuits were doing, So,
yeah. And I'm glad that you brought that up. So Pombero, one of the theories that I heard about why Pombero was recent was because I believe it was the Portuguese, which would make
hmm
sense because they, neighbor up to Brazil. Um, the Portuguese used to hire um, indigenous folks, native folks,
hmm
to um, in a solitary way, basically be like human scarecrows, more or less. They would go out in the fields and they would have these gourds attached to sticks that were filled with rice, and they were in charge of running up and scaring away like birds and stuff from the cornfields.
hmm
So that was one theory. And they were called like I forget the word. The word was very close to Pombero. It was like
hmm
Pomberotan or something like that. It was like very, very, very phonetically close. It was like fireman,
Yeah, yeah,
is
yeah.
today with like Google Translate.
Mm,
Um, so there was that origin. And they were like, and that's why it's only a couple hundred years old. Another one was that when warring was happening around that time, because colonists or colonizers did a good job of causing infighting in order to just kind of weaken everybody and
mhm,
take over, um, that there were spies that were set up, and those spies were constantly like, it was a whole positioning thing. They were crouched over, they would like watch from the shadows, move through the night, and that you would have to leave like treats and food out for them to bribe them, and like all this shit that kind of fits
mhm,
into Pombero. um and then that's how he started. But then you have native folks who are actually there,
mhm. Yeah, yeah.
actually
Know their
involved
own
and
history.
actually saying that
Yeah.
they're actually saying, like, they are looking dead in the camera saying, El Pombero took my fucking son. They are saying this dead-eyed within
Mhm,
24 hours of their own child going. They believe this.
mhm.
Then you have them, and it's not some random new shit that's based in European mixture crap. So
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. I
Yeah.
have no fucking clue. It's very
Hmm.
everything with El Pombero thoroughly defines his status as a trickster, even even if he's 100% fake, and there's nothing that could be like, oh, that's what El Pombero was 200 years
Yeah.
from now or something. Even if that's true, the idea still plays the perfect role of a trickster, where it's just like, yeah,
Mhm.
but I influence society and progressed it. Da, 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 da. It's just everything about it is, in a literary sense, it fits the fucking mold so goddamn well,
Yeah.
so goddamn well.
It's just the
It's
Loki of
fucking fascinating.
Paraguay. The Loki, the trickster god, basically
Yeah,
getting
but
bribed but doing whatever.
if it wasn't for Marvel or whatever franchise does Loki now, there would be more people that know about like El Pombero than Loki, because like
That
that's
would be
how big of a reach, which is
yeah.
fascinating, because we are as English speakers in North America, like we are so close to the Spanish speaking world.
Mhm.
There's not shit in our language about him, but he's like everywhere. Go to TikTok, tens of thousands of videos,
Yeah.
like literally, and there's like three that are in English. One of them, by the way, is Miller's Monsters, who did a I ran a video like years ago, and I commented on it. I was like, "Holy shit! I didn't expect
Yeah.
to see you here." And he's like, "Oh, I'm glad I could help."
Yeah.
But like,
Just imagine if El
yeah,
Pombero
nobody
was in
covers him.
Marvel. Captain America's like, no, that's not okay. You shouldn't be drinking.
It's funny you mention Captain America, Joey, but we'll get to that a little bit later.
Love it.
All right. I hope that confused some of your thoughts. What up, Hair Force? I hope that confused some of your thoughts, Stupid the Cat, around everything. Buddy, I read every goddamn thing I could find and translate, and your answer is as good as mine.
There are
God damn
no
it.
concrete answers. It's like it's all
Somebody
perception
needs
of what it is.
somebody needs to stop me from investigating tricksters in the future because I'll go insane.
I'll
I
do it.
like spreadsheets. I need shit to be orderly.
Mm-hmm.
All right. To the script.